And now joining me all the way from Brisbane, Australia. The one, the only, the long-time veteran UFC MMA fighter, Damien Brown. Now, how bad is it when people call it Brisbane?
I've never heard of it before.
No?
Down here, everyone calls it Bris Vegas down here. It's fun. It's a good
Oh,
city.
is it?
Awesome.
Is it Bris Vegas?
We're nothing like Vegas, that's for sure. But it's definitely a good city.
Well, I'm in Vegas right now. Now, you know what? A lot of people may not be familiar with you, but you are a longtime veteran. You're a pioneer to Australian martial arts. Man, what have you been up to these last couple of years?
Oh man, I've been busy. COVID was a bit of a blessing for me. We went through hard times like everyone, but we, I've been building gyms. I've got 2 gyms now. We had one when the UFC released me. I opened my first gym in March 2019 while I was competing for Ryzen. And yeah, we were almost open 1 year when COVID started. We got locked down like the rest of the world. And, we came out of it running. So about 12 months after that, we moved, doubled the size of our gym space. 2 years later, we opened a second location, and now I'm running my own fight show.
That's awesome. You got your own fight promotion out there in Australia. How's that going?
Yeah, awesome, man. Beatdown Promotions. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It's going really good, man. With 3 shows in, I do it because I love it. It's definitely not something that you're going to get rich off. People look at the UFC and think everyone's getting rich off promoting. You're definitely not on the local scene. You really got to be passionate about it. And I feel like you got to do it for the love. And I have that, I've got a lot of things going on, and I'm blessed that, I don't rely on a single source of income. I stay moving. I make sure that I got streams of income coming from everywhere. You never know when that's going to dry up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important. I think like during these times in the pandemic kind of taught us that you got to have money coming in from different angles because you don't know which one is going to just shut down one day and you don't want to be caught off guard.
Yeah. And I mean, we hear about it all the time. I think, funny enough, the first person that I ever heard say that if you want to make money in life, you've got to have 3 streams of income was actually Tito Ortiz.
How is this possible? An idiot like Tito Ortiz could say something so profound.
No, he did. And I've never forgotten it. I don't know whether he said it. I don't know. I can't remember whether it was said on a podcast or where I said it, but I just remember linking him with that. And this was going back years ago. And if anything, COVID showed us it was that you've got to have your finger on the pulse. At any time, everything can change. And I think that people just didn't expect that. People didn't expect that our world could be taken away from us the way it was. Our income could be taken away. Our mortgages were going to be so expensive. We weren't going to be able to pay things. I just think that people took life for granted. And
yeah.
And here we are. Now we know. Let's not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, I love that. Now, moving along, Australian martial arts is at the forefront of it now, and it's never probably been as high as it is right now. Obviously with Volkanovski as a champ, Israel just right there going to be fighting that rematch against Alex Pereira. What did it mean to have that fight in Australia just these past couple of weeks ago?
I mean, it was massive. We seen just simply, it's probably hard to gauge, as far as ticket sales go, whether or not it was the UFC coming back for the first time in 3 years or whether it was that fight in particular. But just in general, every single time we see a fight of that magnitude hit Australian shores, we see a little bit more mainstream media jump on it. There's a little bit more buzz around different areas that people probably wouldn't generally talk about at social media platforms that don't cover fighting out here, that cover football and stuff. They tend to jump on a little bit. So each time there's a fight of that level that hits our shores, we see a little bit extra coverage, and that grows the sport out here. And the sport has never been as good as what it is right now. Jack Della,
Man.
Jack Jenkins, he had a great debut off the
Yeah,
contenders.
yeah.
I mean, we got these guys that are like, when I signed with the UFC, it was, there was like 10 of us. You know what I mean? Now there's guys from different gyms you never heard of. They're coming up. They're making a name for themselves. There's guys knocking on the door right now. I mean, the sport's never been better down under.
Now, I mean, they got to be giving you your props though, because you was one of the first. You know what I'm saying? It's like to see these young guys come up, they gotta pay some homage, man. They gotta show you respect though.
It's just, look, when I see these guys, they're really nice to me, man. They're very respectful. I'm a humble person. I don't need. I'd rather someone walk through the doors of my gym and say hello and not know who I am than to
yeah.
want those. You know what I mean? So, but when I go to the local shows, these guys are very respectful to me. I like to think that I paid my dues and I did my time and I played a little part in what the sport has become.
Well, I'll tell you what, and looking back at your record, I mean, you caught some bad breaks, right? When the UFC released you, it was off of like a string of split decisions, losses, So I mean, that's a really tough way to go out. Like, how did that affect you?
It wasn't just. I mean, it's a soft spot. Look, I got knocked out by Vince Pichel. I think I was doing pretty good in that fight. I got a little impatient. I was off the back of 2 wins, a little confident maybe. Caught me with an uppercut coming in, but then the UFC re-signed me, so I was on a new contract, and I lost 2 split decisions. One, Frank Camacho missed weight by 5 pounds. The UFC, admittingly said they'd pay me my purse if I didn't want to take the fight. We all know that that's not always the best thing to do because you might wait a long time for another one. But I'm a fighter. I'm a fighter's fighter. I get in there, I get after it. I wanted that fight. I trained for that fight. I took that fight, and we got fight of the night as well. So he missed weight. We got fight of the night. I get to look back and go, oh, well, maybe I wouldn't have won that 50 grand, So, there's pros and cons to taking that. But, I lost a split decision. I thought I kind of won, or maybe we could have got a draw in that one. But, again, fight of the night. He didn't get his bonus, and neither did I. I'm dirty. The UFC did me dirty out of 50K there. So,
no.
He let Uncle Dana know for me that I missed out on that one.
Oh no,
yeah,
that's not right.
You're
supposed to get, if you got fight of the night, you're supposed to get both the bonuses. You're supposed to get 100.
I didn't get it. I only got 1.
Oh no.
I'm filthy about that. Fox Sports announced that I was getting both, and then the UFC said, "Oh no, he's just getting 1." So anyway, I lost a split decision. We got fight of the night. It was a banger. It was top 5 fight of 2017 in the UFC. I thought I bought myself some time. Maybe the next fight was a split decision loss as well, and maybe it just wasn't what they were after. But I learned some lessons, man. I probably had a manager that didn't fight for me at the time. I was a small fish on his books, and it was easy to let that one go. So that's disappointing, and something that I try to mentor my guys in now. That like running off and getting a manager that's got big names on their books is not always the right thing to do. Sometimes you can kind of get left behind, and so yeah, I do feel a little like I could have been in the UFC a little longer. I feel like potentially I could have still been there grinding away. Who knows? But yeah, I finished up 2-4 instead of 4-2 with those 2 split decisions. So that's the way it goes.
That's a tough break, man. And you're right about that. I think that's a lesson for a lot of young fighters is that they can get caught up in the names and these managers approaching them and go, we got this guy, we got that guy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do what they do for them for you. And you're right about that. Like a manager, at the end of the day, winning fights and your fighting style is your manager. That's really what sets your value. Your manager they can do what they can do, but sometimes, man, if they don't really fight for you,
Yeah, man. I just felt like I felt like I fought good fights and I put it on the line and I made I mean, I made myself proud, my family proud, and every time I fought to win. Um, just a couple of close decisions there, and I feel like I won those fights.
yeah,
Uh, not convincingly, obviously, because it was a split decision, but I felt like I did enough, and I'm pretty sure everyone feels like that. But definitely off the back of that fight of the night with Frank missing weight and whatnot, I definitely thought that I probably deserved another crack, and but it wasn't to be. And I didn't get my 100K. I got my 50. I'm dirty.
nah, man, they cheated you out of that, dog. I got to talk to that man. I got to get my man his money.
Hey man, the next time someone missed weight, straight after that fight was was Robert Whittaker versus Yoel, and Yoel missed weight. Whittaker got 100K. I was filthy.
Oh man,
and they still doing it, but they didn't do it for me.
See, that's messed up. That is totally messed up.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of one of the things that me and you have been talking about a little bit on Twitter, and I want to get into that now. It kind of makes sense, and that is with fighter pay. Now, as a promoter yourself, you should have your own ideas about this in its way. So, and just generally, what do you think the biggest issue is with fighter pay in all of MMA right now?
I don't think there's an issue with fighter pay. My view on it is probably very different to a lot of people. I feel like if we look at every other sport, right? So look, I can't talk for American sports, but I know that they constantly talk about athlete pay. All right, let's not look at fighter pay. Let's look at athlete pay. So if I use NRL, which is the rugby league here in Australia, let's say, how old's MMA now? Are we 30? We're 30, right? We must be.
Yeah,
30.
yeah.
So let's go back 30 years ago to 1990, when basketball players, Major League Baseball players, and soccer players, rugby league players, they were getting paid. I mean, rugby league in Australia 30 years ago, guys were working jobs, training 3 or 4 nights a week, drinking beers. They weren't athletes, and they were getting paid like 5 or 10 grand a year on top of their job to play in the biggest sport in the country.
Yeah.
Complained year after year about athlete pay, and now they get paid. The minimum pay is like 150 grand a year for an entry level. And then, like, you got guys like your key players that are on sort of $1 or $1.5 million a year. I just think that MMA is in a position right now that in another 30 years, fighters are going to be getting that good money, but it's just not there. Do you know what I mean? It's not boxing. We're not boxing, but everyone compares it to boxing. I just think we're in a sport that's forever evolving, and if the athletes don't complain about it today, then tomorrow the athletes won't benefit from it. But the athletes today have to accept that they're kind of in this position where they're fighting in a sport that's where it's at right now. And that's kind of my view on it. I just compare it to other sports. It's easy to say, like, I get punched in the face for a living and I deserve $1 million. But, maybe you're in a sport where you need to work a full-time job at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I worked a full-time job my whole career. Could I have been better? Maybe. Could I have lasted longer? Potentially. But I paid my bills. I bought a house. I did everything that a normal human would do on a job, and I got to live out my dream of fighting in the UFC at the same time, because I believe that that's the part of the sport that I was involved in. That's the year that I was in the sport. That's where the money was at. Do you know what I mean? So I think that athletes kind of need to acknowledge where they're at. Maybe they need a casual job. Maybe they need to work on hands and train all week. I don't know, like, what the answer is, but I feel like as an athlete, I'm very grateful that I got the opportunities I got. 50 US, $68,000 Australian changed my life. One hit, I invested it. Now I've got gyms and all sorts of stuff, and it didn't just come from that one amount. But, like, I never used my fight money to live off.
Yeah,
I used my fight money to invest in my life. So I just think that from a fighter perspective, that's kind of where the sport's at, you know. But it's a requirement to complain about fighter pay in order for the future athletes to benefit from that. And they
So
need
you
to
don't
be.
mind. So you don't mind the complaints, though. You prefer.
I think the complaints are necessary, right? Friction
Mhm.
gets results. Yeah, the
Yeah,
squeaky wheel, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know what I mean? So it's like people have to complain about fighter pay in order for fighter pay to increase, right?
yeah,
There's got to be friction. If there's no friction, there's no result. People don't care. They wash it under the carpet. It's you know, dusted on the carpet. It's done. But for fighter pay to increase over time, like the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, people today need to complain about it. But they're not going to get $1 million today. They're going to get the future athletes of this sport money.
yeah,
They need to understand their role in the sport and that they're part of the sport today. And this is what the fighter pay is at. And you need to find a way to live and benefit from that. That's my point of view from an athlete's perspective. Um, from a promoter's perspective, I look at promoting like a business. So in business, a general rule would be that let's say employees, okay, contractors in this, you know, fighters are contractors. But let's just use a general business rule. 30% of your business, for the most part, is a good goal for wages. All right. So a business
yeah,
that's paying 40%, 50% in wages is probably going to go under. A business that's paying 10% in wages is probably ripping their staff off. So, as a general rule, if you're paying around 30% of your revenue in athlete pay, then you know that's probably the max you should be paying for your business to effectively operate, profit, and continue to you know, evolve. And I think the UFC say they're paying around 20. Is that right?
yeah.
Something. Yeah.
I don't know. Like the number, it's weird because I don't know if the I don't know if the UFC's ever said what the percentage is. It's normally we hear from the media what the percentage is. You know.
Well,
So and that
you trust so much of that,
right.
but you know, like as a general rule in business, you stick around that sort of 28 to 30% of wages. So
Yeah.
that's for employees. Now, if you just look at contractors, I mean, they pay their own tax and everything. If you're paying 30% of your revenue to your contractors, then you know, like you're probably around a general business rule. And like I'm not in massive business, you know, big business. I run gyms, but you know, someone would probably argue with that a little bit. You know, then you've got to take into account the UFC's got shareholders. Shareholders want to make money. You know, so the UFC is a little different these days to when it was when you know Dana and Lorenzo and Frank had it. You know, they were the owners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they could profit, or they were giving out bigger bonuses. You know, because they didn't have all these people that wanted to profit from the business. So now you've got this tug of war between shareholders and athletes. You know, one wants profit, one wants more income. So that's probably another whole issue again. But if you looked at the UFC when the Fertitta brothers and Dana owned it, you know, they were giving out better bonuses and there was more money getting sort of thrown around. It probably wasn't as big pay wise, but there was definitely more money because they were giving up their share of the profits, three people, to benefit the
Yeah.
athletes and to help grow the sport and the business. You know, and ultimately they benefited from the profit of a sale. But now we're in this part where, you know, we're talking the highest level, the UFC, where you got shareholders and athletes having a tug of war over who's going to get paid and who's going to get more profit, and that's always going to be an issue because people buy shares to make money. So you
Yeah.
got people invest in this business for different reasons. But I think if you're paying out 30% of your revenue to your employees or contractors, you know, you're probably doing the right thing. Every other business does that.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing is that they try to compare it to the other major sports here in the U.S., which is again, this is according to the media and different reports, is that they pay 50% of their revenue to the athletes, and
Okay.
they're saying that the UFC pays 20. So like that's the big kind of the big disparity. So I mean, it's to me because like you said, I mean, we're talking about shareholders who invested into the business, and then we're talking about the labor, the guys that are actually out there fighting. So it's very difficult to really kind of decide.
It definitely is. I mean, we obviously don't have a fighters union. You know, we don't have unions sort of fighting for our rights and breaking things down. Um, and most other sports do. But, you know, I would certainly encourage most people to look at what baseball was after 30 years of starting. I'd encourage people to look at what the NFL was 30 years after starting, you
Yeah,
know, and just maybe compare where our sport is right now to where every other sport was at the same point in time, not where every other sport is now, because it's
right.
it's impossible to compare MMA after 30 years to, you know, NRL's been going for like 110 years. Like that's out here, the rugby league. It's
Hmm.
taken 110 years for a football player to get, or 100 years for a football player to get paid $1 million a year. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's impossible to expect that MMA is going to get the same. We don't have the same traction. We don't have the same mainstream media. We don't have the same corporate sponsors. We don't have the same investors. So it's impossible to expect the same from a sport that's at a different point in its evolution.
yeah. I really, yeah. I mean, that's a big difference. I mean, when you have 110 years to get something right and to figure out, I mean, that's a long time to really develop and grow. And the UFC, I think they've done a tremendous job. But then you also got to look too, is that the market. Like, I mean, you're a promoter, and you so from a promoting standpoint, like the market just isn't there. I mean, the UFC is the brand, but in terms of like being an MMA fighter, they just don't make a lot of money.
They don't, man. You know, they don't make a lot of money. Like I said, I
Yeah,
worked a full time job my entire career. Um, you know, if you're living off fighter pay, then you can't expect to get rich. You
yeah,
know, 1% of fighters probably make the UFC, and there's probably 1% of them that get rich. You know,
yeah.
like yeah, I reckon like I'm gonna guess. Okay, I don't know, but let's take a guy like Dan Hooker, right? Dan Hooker on a tear gets to the top five, takes a couple of losses. I know he was pretty open about buying a second house off the Felder pay. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, maybe he'll retire one day. Maybe he's invested. I don't know, but maybe he'll retire one day with a few houses. He's doing all right. You know what I mean? He's getting some revenue from his houses from the rent, but he's not going to be like, you know, Conor McGregor money. You
No,
know, there's like 1% of people are getting filthy rich off this sport. You
yeah,
know, yeah, I would challenge anyone. I reckon like George St. Pierre, John Jones, Anderson Silva, Conor McGregor. Shit, I reckon like I could name on my hand and be pretty accurate the amount of people that don't have to work based on fighter pay alone. Based
yeah,
purely on fighter pay. I'm not talking like proper 12 and every pub in bloody Ireland that Connor owns. I'm just talking just fighter pay. You'd be able to put it on your hand, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But it's necessary for fighters to complain and to protest for more money in order for the athletes in 10 years to benefit from that. That's their role in the sport.
I like that. I love that. So, Damien, what else you got going on, man?
Oh man, we
Plug
got
anything.
oh man, I got everything. I got a son that's about to turn 6 that thinks he's 26. He gives me a
Hmm.
wine on the cheek, and I love it. Um, told me last night that it was tonight was the last time his mum's allowed to go to a fight show because he wants to stay at home with her. So, um, yeah, we got a whole lot going on. My family, my gyms. This morning we got a 2 hour seminar. We're going to give out a couple of black belts. I don't know if you're live
Awesome.
here, but I don't know if people are going to be watching this, but we're going to give out a couple of black belts in a few hours. And I'm commentating for Ryzen, so guys should jump on my Twitter because I do a bunch of commentating and tweeting at the same time. So jump on and follow me on Twitter. And I love trash talk as much as anyone. So jump on and troll me, and I'll give it back as good as I can.
I love
And
it.
yeah, man, I just love life. I'm living my best life, and nothing can keep me down. I got gyms going, commentating going, fight shows going. I got 6 athletes competing tonight. We had 7 last weekend, so we got everything going on.
That's amazing. And I got to say, man, I'm proud of you and I'm happy for your success because not a lot of guys can have, successful careers like you had and then move on afterwards and still keep that trend of success going. And you seem to be doing that. You're still doing a lot. You're still very relevant. You're still very important in the game. So congratulations on all your success, man. And I appreciate you coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure, man. It really is. I'm very grateful that guys like yourself, take the time to interact and to help people like myself. Like I didn't get to where I got without help. Like for example, John Anik, my man, John Anik, right? I got a lead role as a play-by-play analyst by accident on Ryzen, and it was a big card, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. Like I never done an opening piece or anything before. So I messaged, the guy that normally does it. And I also messaged John, and John, man, he gave me some pointers over Twitter, DM on how to open a show. He gave me some links to some examples that he'd done, and he really helped me, man. And I walked through that show like a play-by-play professional analyst. And, I didn't sound as good as John, but, there's guys in this sport that people don't realize a simple DM and they can really change your life. So, I'm doing my bit, but I'm appreciative of the people like yourself and John, Dan Hardy, like these guys I reach out to, and you guys are helping me out as well. So, sport's a small world, and I'm grateful for it.
All right, my man. Well, we appreciate you. If there's anything I can do for you, man, don't be afraid to reach out. Like I love the story about John. I'm gonna make sure that he hears about this. If not, I'm gonna tell him tonight if I see him tonight. I heard DFC. But man, you be cool, man. Good luck on your ceremony today, and have a good one.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Let Dana know I'm still waiting for my 50K.
Got it. Peace out, man.
See ya.